The gentleman from Texas.
I thank the chairman. I'll just ask Chairman McCaul if in your recollection, when President Trump was president, were we involved in more war or less war? I would ask whether or not the horrific attack on Israel by Hamas occurred under President Trump's watch or under President Biden's watch.
I would say there were no wars in the prior administration. And I would also say, with respect to Ukraine, it was President Trump that delivered a $300 million lethal aid package for Ukraine that I signed off on. The first president to ever do so. Whereas the prior administration was giving them blankets, but not weapons. We had deterrence, I think.
Would the chairman agree that
at that time
that Ukraine was invaded by Russia under President Biden's watch, not President Trump's watch? That the Abraham Accords were carried out under President Trump's watch, not President Biden's watch? As I just noted, Hamas went into Israel conducting indescribable, horrific events on the people of Israel under President Biden's watch, not President Trump's watch. Is it not true that Nord Stream 2 set the stage for Russia going into Ukraine under President Biden's watch, not President Trump's watch? Is it not true that we abandoned Afghanistan, leaving Bagram, leaving Americans behind under President Biden's watch, not President Trump's watch? Are these not all true statements?
Those are all absolutely correct, and it's not by coincidence. It's by design, because when our adversaries see weakness, you invite aggression, and that serves what we have right now.
Before I go on, I think that I would like to yield a minute or as much time as he needs to the gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I'd like to thank my friend from Texas. Yeah, just a few points in rebuttal. So as my friend from Texas was saying, if you look at the timeline, it tells you everything you need to know. The world is now on fire. It was under control in the last administration. But if you look at it, Nord Stream 2 is the best example. Somebody said that President Trump was aiding Russia. President Trump was shutting down Nord Stream 2. It was the Biden administration that greenlit Nord Stream 2. And again, I hate to reiterate this, but they did it at the same point where they shut down the Keystone XL pipeline for us. So when we can't export our own LNG, Russian gas is more expensive, by the way, which is much dirtier, the dirtiest gas there is. And at the same time, the Biden administration, to this day, is still fighting us on LNG exports. They're not allowing any permits for LNG exports, which, again, weakens our power on the international stage and strengthens who? Russia and Iran. There was some talk about allies across the world not trusting this administration. Why don't you go and ask Niger what they think about the Biden administration giving up a $100 million drone base, and who took it? Russia. I mean, it's completely laughable to think that this administration is hard on Russia. No, the Russians took it in Niger. It's a $100 million drone base that we just basically gave to the Russians. Let's talk about Ukraine. They were talking about statements and everything. You know, if you look, leading up to the war in Ukraine, it was Trump that was providing lethal aid to Ukraine. Then Biden comes in, and Biden starts to make all these ridiculous statements that we would, quote unquote, tolerate a minor incursion into Ukraine. Like we would be okay if the Russians took a slice of Ukraine. He should have continued to give lethal aid to the Ukrainians to prevent the war from taking place. Instead, Biden was busy, I guess, sending them blankets and well wishes instead of the Javelin missiles they needed. There was a comment about Trump not trusting the intel community. Is this the same intel community that told us that Kabul would stand for years and Kiev would fall within days? I mean, maybe he was right not to trust what the IC said, because they've been right so many times before. There was a comment about a prisoner being released from a theater internment facility in Afghanistan. That prisoner was released. He was released under President Biden right before the withdrawal. So Biden gave up the Bagram Air Base, released the theater internment facilities, which of course houses terrorists. And then one of those terrorists, of course, blew up Abbey Gate, killing 13 U.S. service members, directly attributable to Joe Biden. The Abraham Accords. Abraham Accords, great thing. But the Abraham Accords came about because the Obama administration was so bad with foreign policy that them pushing this ludicrous idea of having an Iranian nuclear deal, it actually drove the Arab states to the Israelis against the Persians. And it was President Trump who then capitalized on that and was able to work out the Abraham Accords between many of the Arab states and the Israelis. It was heading in a very good direction, which led to the attack of September 7th, because Hamas, Iran, and other nefarious actors saw the Saudis and the Israelis and the other Gulf states getting close, and they needed something to drive a wedge. And of course, they knew they could get away with an attack with, again, a weak Biden administration. And let's talk about the Houthis. Delisting the Houthis from the terrorist watch list is an absolute sin. And somebody said something, our allies respect Joe Biden. How would you like to be one of our allies in Saudi Arabia? And it's okay when the Houthis are attacking them. They're not terrorists when they're attacking the Saudis. But the second they start attacking Americans, then they're terrorists. They were terrorists from the beginning to the end. It just shows where our priorities are and how we won't defend our allies. So what's been said, and there was also some comment about the American people. If you pull up any polling data on this, right, you could do a poll tomorrow. The vast majority of Americans trust President Trump over Joe Biden on foreign affairs. Irrefutable. I'll try to pull it up if another gentleman would yield me more time. But with that, I yield back and I thank my friend from Texas.
Thank my friend from